Now, more of Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project, the only show directly addressing the problems and solutions for Illinois. Now, from AM 560, here's Dan Proft.
Dan and Pat back on this edition of Rising. And Pat, survey out this week, the Democrat primary for governor shows Dan Biss gaining some ground. In fact, J.B. Pritzker has receded back to within striking distance of the field with Dan Biss, the senator from the North Shore, the Trotskyite from Wilmette, I think. Evanston. He lives in Evanston. The middle-class governor, that's his ad. He's running, that nonsense. And Biss in the second position, and Chris Kennedy in third. And there's been a lot being made of this. Dan Biss, obviously, is kind of the Bernie Sanders candidate, and so the populist revolt on the other side for the socialists, could Biss be their candidate, and could that buoy him to victory in a competitive three-person field? Now, to be fair, Spalding came out with a survey after this one suggesting that he's still up 20 points. So this thing is still very fluid, and I still think on the other side, people are getting a handle on the candidates, just as they are, just as happens in primaries in both parties. But the one thing I would say about Biss, he didn't have anywhere to go but up, and so he's spending a lot of money on TV. That's going to generate awareness, and it's going to make you say, oh, maybe this guy. But the fact that he has made such a move, and Kennedy's sort of been a bobber in the water, I think does suggest that there's an appetite for new faces, new leadership in both parties.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think the Pritzker people were surprised by this because I think they think if they spent more money and went out first, and he obviously has all the sort of endorsements and he's consolidated all that because of his money, right? Because the party wants to participate in some of that largesse, that he would be way, way ahead, and he's not. And we've talked about this on the show before, Dan. Biss is a new face. He's a younger face. He's also occupying a lane of the Democrat electorate that is that Bernie Sanders progressive wing that we've talked about. And that's if you watch the State of the Union this past week, which I know that you did, there's sort of a virile strain of that in the party nationally and here in Illinois.
Well, and also he doesn't have the scion profile, right? You're talking about scions of wealthy, politically potent families, Pritzker and Kennedy, and here's the underdog story.
Correct.
And America loves an underdog story. Here's the underdog story of just a middle-class guy walking his kids to school. That's the commercial after Fred Armisen prepares breakfast for the family. And, and he's up against these potentates that, basically inherited their money. And so, it's ironic. He's doing a good job of sort of playing class envy politics against the champagne socialists in the Democrat Party who are, befuddled, but it's a befuddlement that benefits Biss. And that's pretty good alliteration right there.
That was excellent. You're a great speaker. The reality is, look, if you believe these polls, like you said, these are fluid numbers, but whether Pritzker's up 13 or 20, or somewhere in between, he's still up, right? That's still a big. If he wins the election by that much, that's a butt kicking, right? So let's not get carried away with the fact that Biss is going to run through this lane and win. I still think it's Pritzker's to lose with the money and everything else.
You think the Pritzker thing? You think the Pritzker Blagojevich audio commercial, the phone call commercial? He's obviously taken on some water, and he's retaining a lot of water in addition to that.
He really is.
But do you think that that's a kill shot for him?
I do not. I do not think it's a kill shot because I think it has, depressed his numbers just because you're seeing the two of them together in a conversation. So naturally, you're going to see that. But I've watched that ad about 30 times, and it's just very, very hard to sort of follow. There is no sort of smoking gun in it. So it's guilt by association for now, and I think that's bringing him down. But it isn't. I don't feel it's a kill shot for him. But it does show that Pritzker is not a really good candidate, right? People are talking about, these ads are good, and he seems nice, and he talks about his alcoholic mother, and he's a regular guy, and all this nonsense you hear from the left. The reality of it is, even the electorate there doesn't like him that much, given his structural advantages. So if he were to win this primary, and I expect that he will, and he's running against Jeanne Ives, for example, talk about the fresh face. he's going to have problems because people are going to see him for what he is, and he's not that likable. He's not accomplished. And so that's going to be a problem for him.
You think that you still think it's more likely that he wins than he doesn't? I mean, you think this race is over? Or you think that Kennedy just went up on TV this week as well. Kennedy and or Biss have a chance.
It's not over. They still have a chance. I think either of them, including Kennedy, has a chance. But it's still his to lose. There's no question.
Who do you think is a more off-putting Kennedy, Chris Kennedy or Joe Kennedy III, who gave the State of the Union response?
Joe Kennedy III by orders of magnitude. First of all, I thought it was a Conan O'Brien skit for a second. I honestly thought it was like Conan O'Brien.
He's a bit of a ginger.
He's a ginger, and he's. That's the thing about the progressives. I like Chris Kennedy from the standpoint that he's kind of awkward and blunt, and so it's almost like he's got an issue.
It's almost like he's you.
Yeah, it's like he's me. He comes off and says things he shouldn't say, but it's entertaining and they're blunt, right? I like that. The other thing with the other Kennedy is, hey, we're the progressive party of minorities and of people coming from other countries and of the LGBT community. And what do we put on there? The pastiest, richest, whitest, straightest guy from the most liberal state in the union to be our standard bearer. This is how stupid the Democrats are. And they can't even adopt their own narratives.
And, way too much Vaseline around that orifice in the middle of his head, too.